Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. We are back once again to do a PLE reactions video, this time for Halloween Havoc, which took place on October 25th, 2025, in Prescott Valley, Arizona, at the Fenway Toyota Center. The opening contest is the one I believe we thought it would be, and that is Javon Evans and Leon Slater going up against Mr. Iguana and La Parka. I did not know before this match that La Parka had been an ongoing thing for, I think they said, 3 decades. I did not know that. But regardless, it doesn't take away much from this match. I think we had pretty high expectations for this match, both from an in ring perspective and an entertainment perspective. KP, did this match deliver for you?
I think naturally speaking, when you look at this sort of matchup, you expect a whole lot of craziness, a whole lot of high flying action, and just generally just very quick stuff going on throughout the entirety of the contest. And for the most part of it, we got exactly that. I think it did hit a lot of those heights that we expected it to reach, and just generally speaking, it was a lot of fun. You obviously had that entertainment factor coming in with Mr. Iguana and Layeska, especially. With those two, they just bring a slightly different dynamic, and it's always very intriguing and interesting to watch the personality come out and on show throughout those matches. La Parka, with his just blasé attitude and just generally just sort of like really calm, composed, just attitude that he brings. There's a whole lot of different things to really focus on in this contest, and yeah, just you look at Javon and Leon. These are two of the probably brightest young talents in wrestling today, and they are killing it right now. Both of them are just equally as good as the other, in my opinion. They literally do just sort of like bounce off of each other, no pun intended, and they just they make themselves look better. As the match went on, though, just a very, very fun, lots of high risk, fast paced, crazy moves. It was very entertaining, with so much going on. I thought maybe my only critique would be that it was a little bit sloppy, not 100% clean, but that does come with the territory. You do these type of matches, and you don't expect everything to go 100% correctly. And I'm not saying there was a massive botch or anything, but I'm just saying like there was just little bits that maybe weren't quite as smooth as they would have wanted it to be, transitions and things like that. There was one particular moment towards the late stage of the matchup where I think it was Mr. Iguana and Javon Evans both went for springboard cutters. I'm not sure if that was meant to be Javon maybe hitting Mr. Iguana with his cutter during that spot that was planned, but yeah, I thought that maybe was a possibility of being something that didn't go quite right. But like I said, I don't really mind so much. You talk about a match like this, you're not going to get everything that's going to be 100% clean. That's the high risk, high reward nature of the matchup. So yeah, we watch it for the fun, for the craziness, just for the general, just sort of hell to leather attitude that these guys have, and that's exactly what it was. So yeah, we get Javon Evans dive into the outside, taking out La Parka. That would set up Leon with Mr. Iguana. Then he would hit his Swanton 450, and that'll be enough to get the victory for Javon Evans and Leon Slater in this opening contest. But yeah, I quite liked it. I thought it was a great way to kick things off. Really, you don't want to blink and you'll miss something type situation here. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. Just had a lot of fun watching it, and yeah, I thought it did a good job to kick things off and set the pace for the rest of the evening. So, Nick, what did you make of this one? Obviously, you've got a lot of dynamics here and a lot of bright talents and good sparks here throughout. But yeah, what was your general thought on the match itself?
Yeah, I did note that kind of Iguana Javon mishap, whatever that was. I think that was clearly not meant to be. But considering all of the high risk things, as you kind of were alluding to, considering all of those things that took place during this match, I think the one kind of mistake, at least the glaring one that I saw, I can forgive that with everything else they provided. I thought this match was equally, equal parts entertaining and impressive from an athletic aspect as well. So it was pretty much exactly what I was kind of expecting. I had a ton of fun with this one. I thought this was a great way to kind of start the evening. It's impressive thing for me to be able to both impress me from an athletic standpoint, but also to make me laugh, which this match did several times. I think that there's something to be said about that. Kind of the sports entertainment kind of package, if you will. And so I just had a ton of fun with this one. I probably rate this one higher than most. I did this one 8.5 out of 10. Just put a smile on my face and was fun to watch. So pretty much exactly what I was expecting. So can't really fault it much more than that. So with that, let's get into the next match, which has El Hijo to Dr. Wagner Jr., the AAA Latin American champion, going up against Ethan Page, who is the NXT North American champion. This is not a title for title match, however, though. This is solely Ethan Page defending that NXT North American championship. And yeah, I'm curious to get your thoughts on the match type, which was a Day of the Dead match. I know you had some curious thoughts, curiosity for this type of match. So I'm curious to see if it lived up to what you kind of expected.
Yeah, obviously not knowing what the match was going to be about or going to be like, sort of thing. I was very intrigued to see what we were going to get. I was expecting maybe something like a Miracle on 34th Street fight or a Trick or Street fight, whether you sort of like get like props and things around the ring, you get like sort of like just general decorative bits and whatever, maybe sort of like, you know, relating to that of Dia de Muertos sort of style. But yeah, we didn't really get any of that, and it was just essentially what it was a street fight, is what I would call it, just a general street fight with no like added bits going on in the ringside area. The main difference was that we got some sort of like purplish lighting across the ring. That seems to be the only real difference here. But generally speaking, though, you know, the gimmick aside, whatever, it was just a really fun matchup. It was my match of the night. What I will gladly say right now, I was extremely hooked on this contest, and there was a number of reasons why. First and foremost, it was extremely fun. It was just a very good, solid matchup. Nothing went wrong as far as I could see. It was extremely back and forth. You know, it was very well balanced. Both men got so much offense in. You know, the scales were turned up and down all the time here in this one, and just generally, it was just a lot to sort of like keep up with. And yeah, it was just full of content. You know, just weapons and just general things going on throughout the matchup. There was a very big turning point, I will call it, where you've got Ethan Page sort of looking to, I don't know, like just, I guess, just inflict a little bit of punishment on Vagner. And he's sort of yanking at the mask. And when he's doing this, you're sort of thinking like, all right, well, it's going to be a situation where he's probably just going to sort of like pretend to take his mask off. And then eventually Wagner's going to get up and obviously, you know, be very insulted by that. But actually instead, Ethan Page is ripping the mask and he rips half of it off. Like he rips the top half of the mask off, you know, exposing the top of his face. And yeah, obviously that lights a fire in Wagner. And he's absolutely furious. He gets up and he just basically just almost like hulks up and things, like, and he just, you know, loses it on Ethan Page. And then we see sort of like a very aggressive second half, and it was already a little bit aggressive going to this point anyway. But just generally speaking, from here on out, it was very ill tempered, and it seemed to match the situation and of what just occurred. But yeah, with Wagner's change of dynamic here, made for an extremely fun second half as well. And it gets to a point eventually where Wagner's on the turnbuckles. Ethan Page throws some like a bit of powder in Wagner's face, and obviously with his mask exposed, you know, it's easier to sort of like get that to be a bit of a problem for him. So there's a table set up literally just in the ring as well. Ethan gets up onto the top as well with Wagner, hits an avalanche twisted grin, popping him through the table and picks up the victory as a result, so retaining his North American Championship. But yeah, this one was just an extremely good matchup for me personally. I loved it. Can't really knock this one down in any way particularly. It didn't have like a, you know, like a massive like moment, I would call it, I guess you want to say. But a very interesting conversation with the mask, because as far as Mexican and lucha history goes, if a luchador loses their mask, exposed to their face, whatever, in a wrestling match outside of their native homeland, then it's deemed as unforgivable. So as to how this one's going to be seen, you know, for him going forward in AAA, it's going to be quite interesting, because obviously there's a lot going into this, you know, the traditions of wearing the lucha masks. So that could be quite fascinating to see how this one is perceived over in Mexico and AAA and, you know, all that sort of understanding over there. But yeah, I'm keen to see how that one does play out in the end. But this one was extremely entertaining. Thought Ethan Page winning here was fantastic, and just couldn't keep my eyes off of a very, very fun, entertaining, great match. I gave it a 9 out of 10. Just very, very solid. And like I said, it was my match of the night. How did you rate this one, Nick, in terms of just general, you know, craziness throughout, the gimmick, I guess you could call it, of the match itself, Ethan Page winning, the mask? There's so much to talk about. But yeah, how did it vibe with you?
Well, it was my match of the night as well. I gave it a 9 out of 10. As far as the stipulation, yeah, you pretty much hit it on the head there. A street fight with some purple lighting. So I have to say I was a bit disappointed. The stipulation sounded really cool, and maybe that is exactly what it always means. You know, we just hadn't had any exposure to that type of match. So yeah, but regardless, it did not take away from the match in the slightest. And I thought the coloring of the match was kind of cool, especially with Wagner's kind of attire. I thought it made it look that much better as well. And because this match had a bit of everything, my goodness. Somehow, this one the first match was really entertaining, and this one just stepped it up. Topped that one as well. Ethan Page, I've said it before, I'll say it again. He just doesn't miss. And Wagner was impressive in his own right as well, in terms of the coast to coast with the trash can, the rump spot, or the rump spot, Booker T calls it. But by the way, Booker T and Big Joseph were absolutely on one this entire evening. They have a blast together usually, and this night felt like they kind of stepped it up. They were cracking me up the entire night. Back to the actual match, yeah, it's just entertaining for bell to bell. In terms of luchador kind of traditions and stuff, I don't know if half the mask or it has to be the full mask. If now he has to go without a mask, I'm not sure on that. But I am curious to know that as well, and we'll probably look into that after this. But yeah, I don't know if that qualifies as, you have to lose your mask now. But regardless, if it is, and that was his last match with the mask, what a hell of a way to go out. These both these guys brought it, and as you said, after that max, half that mask did get ripped. That was a point of Wagner Jr. that I had not seen before, and he showed up, showed out. But also Ethan Page does usually as well. So yeah, this was a really fun contest. Like I said, match of the night for me as well. If we have some more matches to go with this one, because obviously you have the mask bit now, sign me up because this was a ton of fun. Getting into the next match, we have Blake Monroe going up against Zaria, who is fighting on behalf of Sol Ruca for that NXT Women's North American Championship. Uh, yeah, I still don't know if Zaria had won that match, what would have happened. I didn't really hit on that, or at least that I caught. So KP, a couple things for you. Are we still thinking Sol's injury is legit? That's my first and biggest question. For me, it all kind of seems too perfect, too cute, with the way that she's taking bumps too. Not to say that people don't, but typically when they start taking bumps and also injured at the same time, it usually has me, really second guessing. So curious to get your thoughts on that. And of course, the match itself, crowning us a new women's NXT North American champion.
So yeah, let's talk about the injury first, because I had no reason to believe that it was fake up until this event. I just thought to myself that it seemed legit, it was fine. And then when watching the show last night and, seeing that Soruka was going to be accompanying Zaria down to ringside, I was like, oh, well, something's up here. Something's going to go on. And then the way it played out with Soruka, taking a bump here and, Blake Monroe colliding into Zaria, that obviously then collides into Soruka, tumbling her down to the floor. Normally you don't have superstars that are injured taking these kind of bumps. So that was quite interesting to me, quite telling. And I thought to myself, okay, well, hold on a minute. Maybe Sol's not injured. Maybe this is all a ruse. But the more I thought about it, why would it be a ruse? Because if it is, why would Sol risk her title for an injury? I just couldn't piece it all together. So in that sense, I was absolutely perplexed as what on earth was the situation with her being down at ringside. She has to do something which states that, she's turning over a new leaf or something here as a result. And that didn't happen. So I'm honestly flummoxed as to what the thinking was behind it. I really have no idea. The match itself was decent. It was fine. It wasn't anything special. I think it was probably my least received match of the evening. Not to say that it was bad, but just the quality of every other matchup, I think, just generally speaking, this one did fall a little bit flat in comparison to those ones. But like I said, there was nothing overly wrong with it. It was quite a competitive bout, and you saw a lot of drama towards the end, obviously with Sol Ruca that I already mentioned about. You got Blake running around ringside away from Zaria. That obviously interaction happens. Blake knocks the crutch from Sol Ruca as well. It sends her crashing down. That was the first of the two bumps. So yeah, there's just a lot going on here. Zaria losing control, beating down Blake, and then that would promote her then to go and check on Ruka, which is where I talked about earlier on with the collision between the three ladies on the outside. So that allows Blake Monroe to hit the glamour shot, which is her double underhook DDT. Great name, by the way, for a finisher. Just want to put that out there. And then she rolls Zaria back into the ring, hits the glamour shot again, and picks up the title. So we get a brand new Women's North American Champion crowned in Blake Monroe. I think that's well deserved. I think she's been brilliant since coming to NXT. I think it was only a matter of time before they did put gold on her. So yeah, just generally really chuffed that they pulled the trigger and stuff, and they did what they needed to do. So yeah, no complaints from me in that situation for sure. Just a little bit of a weird one with the Saruka dynamic, and I mentioned that earlier on as well. But yeah, I guess we see what happens on NXT. Maybe we get like an answer to all this. I really have no idea. Maybe it was a case of Sol was not quite knowing her severity of her injury just yet. But it seems like a weird risk to take, even in that sense. I have no idea. I can't possibly work the situation out just yet. I'm going to need more. So I'm going to wait until NXT, and then maybe we'll get some answers then. I gave this one a 7 out of 10. Like I said, it wasn't anything like incredible, but it just didn't have... It wasn't anything bad either. It was just like a decent, solid matchup, but it strikes more questions than it does with answers for me. And I think I got to know more. I got to wait until NXT to find out what exactly this is the situation here. To look back on this and think, oh, okay, well, that's why they did this sort of thing. But hey, congrats to Blake Monroe. What a win for her. Great moment. Her first title in WWE. And yeah, let's see how her reign goes. Looking forward to it. Nick, what did you make of it? And what about this whole injury situation? Can you could you have a decisive theory as to what is going on with Sol?
Well, at the very least, you can say it is a topical one in that of Sol Ruka and in that North American Championship. I think I've mentioned it, I think probably more than I should have, and that is it felt like it wasn't really being showcased. So, what better way than have her to have an injury, whether that's real or not, and then have Zaria fight on her behalf. That way she doesn't have to take the loss. I think that part's obvious. But why not just have her vacated if she is actually injured? Why not just have her vacated and have some sort of tournament or Zaria kind of give Zaria the title. We've seen a title given away before. I don't know. Something is off there. I think it's all just because booking decisions probably like, hey, we need to probably feature that title more. And this was whatever reason something a little different. I guess they decided to go with. And maybe we're all just reading too much into it. Maybe Sol is injured and we'll find out. But like you said, we'll find out regardless. At one point or another, the just being featured at ringside kind of just topped off the suspicions that I had in the first place. But yeah, that doesn't take away from the match itself, which I thought was good as well. I did, like you said, it didn't. It was missing something, which is kind of the theme for a few of the other matches that we see throughout the night. Yeah, just missing something. And this match was the shortest of the night by almost 5 minutes. So maybe this match got cut a bit because all the other matches were going pretty long, comparatively speaking. This one only clocked in at 11 minutes. So that could have been part of the issue. But like I said, Blake Monroe, she absolutely deserves that title. The one of the most deserving that hadn't yet had a champion. If you listen to our podcast enough, you know who the other woman is, and hopefully she'll get it soon enough. But yeah, I'm curious to see what Blake Monroe can bring to that title. One thing is for sure, she will bring some glamour with it. Getting into the next match. We have Tatum Paxley of the Colon going up against Jacyjayne of Fatal Influence, defending that NXT Women's Championship. KP, I think we both pretty confidently had Jacyjayne winning this one, but that was not the case. What'd you make of this match?
Yeah, I was saying, I think on our predictions video that I was thinking that Jacyjayne was going to win, but I wanted Tatum Paxley to win, and they only went and pulled the down trigger. Absolutely fantastic decision. This was brilliant. What a moment it was as well. Just generally speaking, the match itself was great. It was crazy. We had just a whole dynamic between Tatum Paxley and Jacyjayne. The two factions on the outside. Just there was a lot to take in. It wasn't just a one-on-one contest. It was a one-on-one contest with with Fallon Henley, Laney Reed, Nico Vance, and Sean Spears, as well as Izzy Dame, just being there to sort of like show support and fight against the others. So it was a bit of a war, really here between two factions, and it was great. You know, obviously the ultimate thing at the end is the women's championship, and yeah, it was a really great encounter. The crowd were phenomenal for this contest as well. Tatum Paxley, just the absolute baby face of the situation here. Couple of close falls, especially towards the end. She hits a 450. And the crowd are absolutely going crazy when Jacy kicks out at 2. They think it's all over, and it wasn't. The match continues. It was, yeah, it made for some really great moments, and just the way the match went on, we had the culling and fatal influence on the outside, both being ejected from the contest, leaving just Tatum and Jacy to battle out for quite a while. And this goes on for a bit of a long time. There's a lot of back and forth. Up until we get Nico and Sean heading down the ramp. They're followed by Fallon and Lainey Reed of Fatal Influence. And with the referee distracted, we do have Izzy Dame coming up from the reverse. So she's by the announce table, grabs the Women's Championship, heads into the ring, and it looks like she's looking to hit Tatum Paxley. Now, whether she was or not, I think we could probably, dispute and talk about and debate and whatever. I got the impression that she probably was looking to hit Tatum. But yeah, I don't know. Tatum either way ducks underneath, gets out the way of it. Jacyjayne hits her rolling encore, and that knocks Izzy Dame, down to the canvas. And then Tatum Paxley hits the cemetery drive onto Jacy, and then gets the victory. And it was just a really wholesome, amazing moment at the end. The crowd were really electric for it, really, really into it. And yeah, just generally speaking, they made the moment seem very, very special. And this is the culmination of a lot of hard work and dedication from Tatum Paxley. She's not had the easiest run in NXT by any way, shape, or form. She's lost, former tag team partners. Just generally speaking, people that are very, very close to her. Things have worked out, things haven't worked out. Probably more so the latter than the former in that sense. And yeah, she's improved a hell of a lot. And was she the babyface that was in the right place at the right time? Maybe she was. Maybe. It's sort of like an underdog story, this one, winning that battle royal out of seemingly just, pot luck, what it seemed to be at the time. And now, getting the big one at Halloween Havoc, very, very fitting for her, this event of all events, And there's the stars seem to align, and she gets the victory. So, extremely happy for Tatum. The result, just generally speaking, was fantastic. And yeah, just a really great matchup that I think the crowd were just so deeply into, which made it even better as well. Like, I was on the edge of my seat watching it. When referee counted to 3 at the end, I couldn't believe it. Like, I was like, oh my god, she's done it. Like, that is one of those, like, can you believe it moments, and it really did happen. So also showing credit to Jacyjayne here, because her reign was brilliant as well. Just the work that she put in. Obviously she's improved so much as well in her own right. The women's division at the moment is it is very stacked, and in a different way to what it was probably a good, I don't know, 6-7 months ago, where we had those elite stars, but now we've got a really solid sort of just there's a lot of equal talent around that conversation, which makes it very competitive. So I don't think there's really a split here between certain talent, but it's just a very open and competitive division at the moment, which is fantastic. So yeah, Tatum at the top of that one. Who knew this would happen? But it's a very good thing that it did, and it was a great feeling watching it, and just seeing how it all unwent. So yeah, absolutely over the moon for it. Made for a great finale with everything, and the celebrations at the end as well. With Vic Joseph quoting My Chemical Romance as well with a Black Parade. Just honestly, just so cool. What did you make of this one, Nick? How big a moment was it for you personally? I gave it an 8.5 out of 10. It wasn't quite my match of the night, but I thought this was definitely up there with those big moments for the evening. But how did you receive this one? What a moment, right?
Yeah, beautifully said. I'm not sure if I can top that, or that I'll even try, honestly. It just really kind of hit all the notes, and like I said, we didn't think that she was going to win. I don't think either of us were against the idea. It just felt, it felt all too perfect in terms of, like, to have Hidden Paxley, going up against the title on the night of Halloween Havoc. It just all kind of felt too perfect. in more so like a way, just a perfect way for Jacy to get more heat by beating her, taking that moment away from her. Felt like that was probably the direction they were going, but alas, it wasn't. That bump to the bottom of the ring that took, by the way, that was pretty nasty. And Izzy Dane coming into play here. Who is that title shot for? Definitely something that will be discussed in great detail as well. I like that as well. I think both of those are, Izzy and Tatum are big players going forward as well. So I like that kind of dynamic, the way they did that. I thought that was very nice as well. Yeah, and kind of as discussed in the predictions, I didn't think that Fatal Influence were going to be outnumbered, and the only way the team stood a chance was if they brought all members of the Culling, and they did that. They kind of canceled each other out, so it was down to a one-on-one match with JC and Tatum, and that was the formula that allowed Tatum to get the win. And then after she hit that 450, for her not to win there, and like you said, the crowd went going crazy. I thought, well, that's it. JC's not gonna lose her title if that didn't beat her. And then to come up with the ending they did, I thought that was all just kind of chef's kiss, if you will. Yeah, color me surprised. I love a good surprise, and this was kind of just that. So I don't feel like it happens as often on NXT as it does main roster, and kind of more by the book sometimes. But more often than not in the best way possible. So I too gave this one 8.5 out of 10, just a notch under the Ethan Page match earlier. But hindsight being 2022, this match absolutely should have been the main event. We'll get into the actual events, the other matches going forward, but this one definitely should have been, considering Halloween Havoc as well. That would have just been, I think that would have made the match even better somehow if that was the last thing we saw. But it was not. Let's go on and get into the next match, which was Osiris Jackson and Dion Lennox of Darkstate going up against the Hardy Boys, who are defending their NXT Tag Team Championships in a Broken Rules match. KP, I felt like this match may have gone on too long. What were your thoughts on this one? And I think you did have the Hardy Boys retaining, so perhaps another surprise on your end. How'd you rate it all?
Yeah, I did have the Hardy Boys retaining. I didn't think they would lose it in their first offense. Obviously, it is against the team that they beat to win those titles. So yeah, maybe a little bit surprise on that sense, but in terms of how the match went down, I didn't think it was too long. I thought it was pretty decent length. I think that it did what it needed to do. You had to have the Hardy sort of find a way to, I guess, break even here against Darkstate, because there were 4 members against 2. So how are you really going to sort of like make that into a competitive contest here? When you could literally just have Darkstate very legally just utterly dominate the Hardys for the entire contest. I think it just made the Hardys look extremely strong during this matchup. They managed to take out the 2 non-legal superstars in Cutler and Sugars. I thought they did very well doing that one, putting them both through tables, in a pretty cool spot. Matt off the ladder and Jeff hitting a swanton. Yeah, I just thought this was a well done to begin with here. And then when it got to 2 versus 2, it just thought it was a pretty decent, chaotic, crazy fight, like a TLC match type of vibe here in this one, with pinfalls, perhaps you could say. But yeah, I quite enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I thought it was pretty crazy, chaotic, hectic, pure destruction from start to finish. So many broken tables. I don't know how many there were in total. I want to say about 6 or 7 broken tables throughout the contest. It felt like a lot. But yeah, regardless of that though, we had like other weapons, like steel chairs, kendo sticks, trash cans. It was just made to be really, really fun, towards the very late stages, Matt Hardy gets tangled up in a tree of woe, and that's in the far corner of the ring. We've got a table set up in the ring at the time, and a big-ass ladder on the outside that Jeff's already used to hit a swanton previously during the contest. And Darkstate, they set up a doomsday device. Dion Lennox jumps off of the ladder to initiate that doomsday device, and that puts Jeff Hardy through the table, and that'll be enough for Darkstate to win the Tag Team Championships back. But yeah, I thought this was good. I think, the Hardys looked incredibly strong, just the way they handled the contest here, and they did not make it easy for Darkstate whatsoever. And yeah, Darkstate coming up trumps here, winning those tag team titles back. Obviously, we now look and see what's going on there. Could it be Javon Evans and Leon Slater after a little segment that happened after this? Maybe it could, maybe it won't. But I think just regardless of the fact, I think Darkstate with an extremely big win here, and they had to go through hell to get that job done. They had to beat an absolute legendary team in the Hardyboyz, and they eventually did that. They did exactly that. So yeah, I thought this was great. I thought it was a good contest. I gave it an 8.5 out of 10. Maybe the only criticism is that, with Darkstate winning, the crowd weren't particularly happy at the end. It was a little bit crickets. But yeah, besides that though, it was a really fun contest. I thought it was very enjoyable. So yeah, no complaints from me per se. 8.5 out of 10 I gave it. Is up there with my highest of the night, and just sort of encapsulates the general vibe I got from this, to be fair. Nick, what did you make of this one? Darkstate winning. Maybe you could argue that it maybe fell a little bit flat because of that reason, but you expected this, so maybe it didn't quite go down that route, that vibe for you. So what did you make of that particular sense, and also the way the match flowed as well?
Yeah, my biggest issue, and obviously probably foreshadowed by my question, in that I felt like it went too long. A, because of, you know if no one's going to come in and help the Hardys, um, why would they pick this match type when they're outnumbered 4-2? So you have that bit. And then you have the bit where the Hardys pretty much handled the four of them to kick off the match for what I felt like was probably a good fourth of the match was just getting the numbers even. And so, and you said, yeah, that made the Hardys look strong, but by definition, that made Dark State look a little weak. Which and if the end game was to have Dark State with the titles, what was the point of giving the Hardys the titles in the first place? So I think that was just a moment, whatever. But that definitely is what it comes across to me now as is because the Hardys won that just for a moment. Yeah, I think if you're outnumbering someone 4-2, you shouldn't be able to be handled like that, and then somehow come out on top as well. So yeah, I don't know. That one just didn't set right with me. I think Dark State had a ton of momentum going into that match before they lost the titles, and they still, you could say have momentum, but I think this match didn't do them any favors. I think it did the Hardys worlds of favors, but with that being said. Even the numbers game didn't really, that wasn't really the definition of why they won. You could argue maybe it played a part in wearing out the Hardys, but yeah, I don't know. This one just didn't. I feel like this one wasn't booked correctly. But regardless, the broken gimmick. I feel like the broken gimmick didn't really add a ton either. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I was just expecting more, and I kind of thought Darkseid would take this one more handedly, honestly. If that is the broken gimmick that allowed them to be super powered or overpowered, I guess I can take that for what it is. But yeah, I think Dark State was one of the better things going on in NXT, and I think this kind of did take some of their momentum from that. With that all being said, I did give this one a rating of 7 out of 10. Decent match. I hope the Hardys. Vic kind of alluded to this. I hope the Hardys are alluding or finishing up their career somewhat soon. Although I hate to see it, but some of these bumps they're still taking, it makes me so nervous. I don't want something to go wrong in the ring with these guys. But with all that, after the match, we do see Leon and Javon promo. I think you kind of alluded to there a minute for a bit there was that they felt like they probably should have helped the Hardys, which I'm glad they did at least say that because it at least acknowledges the fact that someone probably should have came out and helped them, and that's why they went with that match type. But they did acknowledge that Leon both has some X Division stuff to take care of, and that they did ask for them to let them handle their business. So there is for that. There also is ATM or OTM who is firing on all the cylinders now as well. So I have a feeling Dark State will kind of get theirs coming quite soon. But for the match itself, I just felt like it didn't make a ton of sense in the big picture for how it was booked and how they had to win the titles back. With that, let's move on to the main event, which has Trick Williams going up against Ricky Saints, his first defense defending that NXT championship. KP, I think we both had pretty high expectations for this one. Obviously, the winner was correct as we predicted it. But how did you view the match as a whole? I'm sure that's also a bit foreshadowed in that I didn't think this one deserved the main event spot. But like I said, hindsight is always 2020. But what did you make of it?
Yeah, we were both highlighting this one as one of our, probably most looking forward to matches for the show. I think it's fair to say we were both really interested in seeing how this one was going to play out. The dynamic with Trick Williams at the moment, just having lost the TNA World Championship, and is his time in NXT coming to an end? I thought this was going to be like a really big sort of send off match for Trick Williams, and I expect the Ricky Saints to win, which he did, so that's fine. But like, I don't think this one really lived up to the expectations that I think I might have put on it. So maybe I was a bit over confident in how this one was going to turn out. But it was a good, solid matchup. Like there was nothing particularly bad about it. But it's just it didn't quite hit the height that I think it could have done. So it was a pretty standard matchup here. A bit of animosity between the two men. They clearly don't like each other, and they showed that. So that's good. The character work came out in trumps there. But I don't know. It wasn't a classic. I think that's fair to say. This one probably will get lost in the shuffle. If this is Trick Williams' last match in NXT, which I had the feeling it could have been going into it, I don't know. It's not really a big one to end on, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. It was good, but that was pretty much all I can really say. It was a good wrestling match. First defense for Ricky Saints, job done for him, I guess you could say with that. And yeah, it was up and down. It wasn't exactly all in one favor for most of the matchup. It was very much an even conversation. But yeah, it just didn't do an awful lot. It didn't set the world alight. It didn't reinvent the wheel. It was just a decent enough matchup. And it gets to a point. We do have announce table being involved at some point. Early in the matchup as well. Trick hits a bookend on Saints through the announce table before then hitting the trick shot, which Ricky somehow kicks out of. That's probably my highlight of the matchup. Just generally, how on earth do you kick out of that? Because that's quite crazy to me, really. So yeah, that was a really big moment, to be fair. And then Ricky does turn things around in the end, fights back, hits a spear, followed by his robo-assisted tornado DDT, and that'll be enough for him to get the victory here on the end of Halloween Havoc. So yeah, personally, I would have loved for this to have been earlier in the night, and had the women's championship match be the main event with Tatum Paxley getting that massive moment. That probably would have worked out better for me personally, but I guess you could say this probably was the biggest match on the card, considering the two guys in it. But just, I don't know, I think just the way that it turned out, it didn't really have that feel, in hindsight. And that's a shame because I was really excited for it, but it was just a good match. Like I say, it's not a bad thing at all. It just wasn't exceptional, brilliant, fantastic. It was just good, and I was hoping for better. Maybe that's just me. I don't know what your expectations were in terms of how good you thought it was going to be, Nick. But what did you make of it comparatively to speaking to what I'm making out to have been? I give it a 7.5 out of 10. Like I say, it was solid, but it just wasn't anything special.
Yeah, and that's pretty much exactly what kind of my thought process is, and I had this listed as one of my matches looking forward to most for the evening. Ricky's first defense, and possibly Trick at least one of Trick's last match, at least kind of where we're at currently in our thought process. Literally, the two things I had was one you already mentioned. One was Ricky kicking out of the bookend and the trick shot. That's a statement. Good for him. But then the ending felt like it was a bit flat, comparatively speaking. Like the high of the match for me, at least, was that moment I just mentioned. So, and then comparatively speaking to all the other matches we've seen, so it just, comparatively speaking, it just kind of was a bit of a letdown. Maybe our expectations were just a bit too high. So actually, this match, I gave it my lowest rating of the night, which was 6.5 out of 10. Just something was off about this match, and it just didn't set well with me. Wasn't a bad match, and 6.5 is still decent. But just everything else before that felt like it was more entertaining. So, yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe just a bad night for one or both of them. I'm not sure. I couldn't really pinpoint it. But regardless, comparatively speaking, I would have much rather seen Tatum Paxley get that win to in the evening. That just would have been such a poetic ending and way to end Halloween Havoc. But alas, this is what we got. So this is what we're rating it. And that's sometimes a match can dip in quality based on where it is in the card, and I feel like this is one of those instances. So with that. Yeah, Halloween Havoc in the books. KP, any final thoughts, match of the night, and yeah, your overall rating, and we'll go ahead and get this one wrapped up.
Yeah, I mean, like I said already, the Day of the Dead match between Ethan Page and El Hijo, the Dr. Vagner Jr. That was my match of the night for sure. Just utterly just barbaric from start to finish. Just great little turning points. The mask, Ethan Page winning the way he did. Just generally speaking, the match was just so entertaining and just great to watch. And that was my thought process for a lot of these matches here. I think you can make a case of the same would be said about the opener as well, with Leon Javon, Mr. Iguana, and La Parka. I think Tatum Paxley and Jacyjayne deserves a massive shout out because that was a very, very awesome moment for Tatum Paxley, especially. Jacy's end comes to an reign comes to an end, and just all the good work that she put in for that one, just a culmination of just hard work from both women. Just thought that was really, really great to see. Everything about that match just worked. Crazy stuff between the Hardys and Darkstate. For me, I thought that match worked out really, really well. I thoroughly enjoyed that one. So yeah, I think there were some very big high points in this show, and just generally across the board, it was pretty solid. Like an average rating for me across the night between all my matches coming to an 8 out of 10. Just a little bit rounded up there, but pretty close to being that solid 8 out of 10. I thought this one was a really good show. Just consistently from start to finish, it had a lot of good moments, but there were maybe a couple of matches that didn't quite live up to expectations, didn't quite hit how maybe they could have hopefully hit. And that extremely confusing Sol Ruka situation that I just really want to know what's going on. But I guess we'll have to wait to find out what exactly the situation is with that one. But yeah, decent Halloween Havoc. I liked it, and a solid show from start to finish for most of the matches. So yeah, Nick, how highly did you rate the match as a whole, the night as a whole, and any closing thoughts and from your end?
Yeah, I feel like the biggest thing for me, as much as I've complained about this, I still ended up giving it a 7.5, which is a notch below yours. But yeah, I feel like it was just a tale of two halves for me. Like the beginning started off so good. My match of the night, obviously, being the Ethan Page, Dr. Wagner Jr. match as well. And then the moment of the night, obviously, being Tatum Paxley winning that NXT Women's Championship. But just felt like maybe a card rearrangement could have been pretty helpful here because that main event, every other match before it had either a big moment or just an insane match type. And so for the main event of a stipulation PLE like Halloween Havoc, where everyone's expected to bring something a little different to the table, neither of those guys really brought anything different to the table. So I think that's kind of why the night just kind of ends on a sour note. At least that makes sense in my head. So it's still a 7.5, very quality event. And I love Halloween Havoc. I love the gimmick PLE around that. Just brings the cosplaying and stuff like that is always fun to see. And the costumes and all that. I love that big Halloween fan. So just felt like maybe a lackluster ending was kind of the final thing that ends up being in my head, but doesn't take away from the matches we got and then the moment, obviously, of Tatum Paxley. And as you alluded to, one last time, I just wanted to say so myself, Jacyjayne, what a reign for her. Not really a bad match throughout her entire reign. And I think definitely put some respect on her name for a lot of those people that were kind of thinking that was crazy for her to win, dubbing her that transitional champ as well. I think she kind of put all of those haters to bed as well. So with that Halloween Havoc reactions video in the books, we don't have much time to rest here. We then have Raw, NXT, and SmackDown upcoming this week, and of course we have Saturday Night Main Event this next Saturday with quite a few title matches being booked on there as well. So we continue to pump out content here and working on the WrestleMania series as well. But until next time, if you have any comments below, please let us know. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button as well. That helps us out tremendously, and we very much appreciate it. But until next time, this has been The Push with Nick and KP. And until next time, we'll see you soon. Take care.